Greetings and salutations and good morning, everybody. I've been awake for about 4 hours. Last night was Man of Steel night. First of all, this is AMC Movie Talk. Normally, this is our daily movie news show that gives you all the latest movie news with insight into everything that it all means. But today is a very special episode because last night was the midnight opening of Man of Steel. For those who've been watching the show for any period of time, you know Man of Steel has been my number one most anticipated movie. Now, I have a history of having highly anticipated movies that then punch me in the junk and really disappoint me and break my heart. So I thought we would set up this show today to talk about our reaction. I am joined today. Oh, but before I introduce who's joining me, I'm going to let you know this. We're going to be talking Man of Steel. Yeah. And while we are not going to go out of our way to expose all the spoilers, we are going to talk about this movie as if you, our friends, are here with us and you all saw the movie with us. That means some spoilers, while we're not intentionally giving them away, some spoilers are probably going to be in this conversation. No, they're definitely going to be in this conversation. So, I recommend that you, if you have not seen the movie yet, add this video to your favorites list and then come back and watch it later tonight or tomorrow after you've had a chance to see the movie. If you don't care about spoilers, then watch away. So, with that warning out of the way, I'm joined by a couple of people who saw this movie with me last night. First of all, she is our very own with us over at AMC Movie News. She is Clark Wolf. Clark.
Hi, John. Good morning. Hi, movie talkers. How are you?
Also joining us is the one and the only Mr. John Schnepp.
What's up? How's it going? Oh, wait. Let me speak into the mic. It's kind of early this morning, and I just saw Man of Steel midnight show, guys.
Yeah, we got it here like 3 in the morning.
Yeah. But hey,
we might as well have slept here last night.
Yes.
Even easier.
So it is time for us to talk about this movie. Schnepp, we're going to start with you. Now, I'll say this, giving some preface to this, so you can, kind of mold your commentary around what I'm going to say. A highly anticipated movie, yeah. I was as concerned as anybody else going in, seeing that the Rotten Tomatoes meter had dropped so low. I think right now it's sitting at 60%. It had dropped as low as 57%. Now, I am usually 90% of the time, I find my opinion is usually right there with them. Every once in a while, like once this year, I really liked Hangover 3. It's got like a 20% of Rotten Tomatoes. So every once in a blue moon, my opinion differs in the Rotten Tomatoes things. And usually when I love a movie that a lot of critics don't like, I can understand, like, hey, I really liked it, like Hangover 3. But I understand why a lot of other people didn't. I get it. Even though I enjoyed it, I get why they didn't. With Man of Steel, my only explanation for why some critics didn't like this film, all I can think is that perhaps their heads were so far up their asses that they couldn't see the movie screen. And that's the only thing I've got. And let me give this preface. Anything I say or Clark says or Schnepp says, we're going to talk about terms like that, like say, you're an idiot if you didn't like this. Everything is in the context of all film is subjective. You are not wrong for liking or hating a particular movie. It's all opinion-based. We talk in terminology of, you're so crazy if you like this, or you're so insane if you didn't. We talk in those terminologies, but under the blanket that we get it. All film is subjective. It's all opinion. Now, with all that being said, and out of the way in that really long preamble, Schnepp, let's start with just general feelings and overall general impressions. Your overall general feeling coming out of Man of Steel.
Overall general feeling coming out of Man of Steel was I loved it, but then I didn't love it. So I was like conflicted because the action sequences in it are the best action sequences I've ever seen in any superhero film as far as like characters fighting and like, I mean, smashing through buildings, the kind of stuff that when I was a kid and I read Superman that I always wanted to see. So on that level, it got it. Like when I saw Avengers, I can only liken it to that to me is still the best superhero movie I've ever seen.
Right.
Because I was watching that movie from beginning to end with a smile on my face. With Man of Steel, there were parts in it to me that were kind of clunky and really heavy-handed, and they got a lot of things overcomplicated where it should have just been real simple. Like just a straight up, I'll say two things really quickly. This is not Green Lantern. Green Lantern, to me, was an incredible dud, disappointment, and it was a lame film. And then and that was my feeling when I saw it, and it was also a box office bomb, and a lot of other people also didn't like it. So Dark Knight Rises was a giant hit, and I didn't like it. So that's where I was differing. This is takes that characteristic that's in the Nolan universe of like this kind of overriding kind of darkness and somber tone and puts it on a character that is light in nature. Like, I mean, it's in just the basic idea of Superman is lightness and good, and we live in a darker time now, but that character is being kind of forced into these like somber tones, and the levity aspect is just not there. But I get it. Like, we already had our chance with that levity and the Donner happy times with Superman Returns, and that just didn't happen. That was kind of a snore fest. So, you know, I think this film had a lot of stuff to navigate through, and it did a really good job. But my only problems with it were just, I'll say this: Superman 2, Zod comes to Earth. Why? Revenge. He wants Kal-El for his dad jailing him. Man of Steel, Zod comes to Earth because he wants revenge. He wants some skull that's got a bunch of like Kryptonian dead kids in it. I got to terraform the Earth and, you know, kill everybody. And I want revenge on Kal-El's son. And I also want to re-kill Jor-El. And it's like all this stuff. And then babies. It's all about like this birthing, natural birthing, this kind of weird subtext that keeps getting brought back into the film. I feel kind of complicates it, and it's a little heavy-handed. But it just, to me, it was like, that was my problem with a lot of these like little things that at first didn't bother me, that then became a thing that was like kept taking me out of the movie. My other big comment about it, which sounds like I didn't like it, but I really liked the film a lot. Like, I give it like a B+, like an 86. You know, if I was going to grade it or something. But these little things are the things that I didn't like about it, so I just want to get them out of the way. When you happen in Iron Man 3 too, you have too much excess, too much of a good thing becomes, and now it's boring. Like, if it was just Superman fighting Zod and maybe two other people, instead of Superman fighting Zod and a whole bunch of these Kryptonian zoners or whatever, like the million dudes on this spaceship, and then he also has to fight a spaceship, and then he also has to fight like a 5,000 tentacled thing for like 20 minutes. That we didn't even have to have that fight with the tentacles, because we had this giant, amazing fight with Zod. It just kind of took the impact away for me a little bit. Like, all this like super CG, which I gotta say is some of the best CG I've ever seen in my life. But when you have too much of it, the same thing happened to me in Iron Man 3. You had like, it was cool to see like 40 Iron Man space, you know, suits flying around, but then it became like, I don't even care. There's no one in the Iron Man outfit. They're fighting these nameless drone, you know, extremist dudes jumping around, and people are exploding. And then the stakes all of a sudden are lowered by like 80%. Like, now I don't care. So that's what happened to me towards the end of the Man of Steel, which is like, I was really into it, and then the stakes just kept getting lowered by them throwing CG at me, throwing effects at me, so that by the time he's fighting Zod, which is incredible, that fight sequence is so amazing that it actually got me back into the movie. Once it started, Zack Snyder's prowess and camera work and ability to make action sequences, this is the best he's ever done. And it's like I said, it's the best effects of two super-powered gods fighting in a city, which unfortunately they also made a little bit too much light of. Like, there's millions of people dying, and Superman didn't really take notice of, like, we just flew through 30 buildings and maybe 20,000 people died. He has time to make a little side comment to Lois Lane or smile. You know, these are little quips, but I'm saying they add up to like why it's not 100% for me and why I'm not jumping around. I still really like the movie quite a bit. I'm going to see it again on Monday, because the thing is, the trailers and all the hype, it builds it up to this thing that it can't possibly survive. At least for me, in my mind, I was like, I sure hope it's the best thing in on the planet, but it's not. To me, it's like, instead it's like a really, really good superhero film, and it's a great new platform for DC to launch a bunch of other characters. And my big thing is like, Warner Brothers, DC, let's move forward quickly. You start, just start making films, and don't be so afraid and like throw stuff at the wall. Like Green Lantern, I don't even know why that was made. It was like nothing's connecting, and yet you're watching this other competitor of yours, Marvel, just not nail it out of the house. We're all this one universe. We're making these films that are all tied together, and this giant blockbusters. And I mean, that's writing on the wall for you. I mean, why are people Marvel heads, and why are people like, DC just doesn't connect with me the way Marvel does? Take note. I mean, it's like, yeah, in the 60s, you had Justice League with like the Flash in full costume having some coffee at the Justice League table. And like, You know, I mean, you have that in Avengers, but it makes sense because it's on S.H.I.E.L.D. and they've assembled this weird group of people together. And like Thor is in his Asgardian outfit. It's not like a bunch of weird dudes wearing like, you know, spandex like, hey, what are we going to do? You know, it's kind of like, you know, it's your grandpa's comics versus your comics. So now you have to differentiate that and bring yourself into the now, you know, just as an overall note for what I think would make DC Comics translate to films better is like get everybody in the same universe. And you have to find that mixture that it just they haven't nailed yet. The darkness for the Nolan Batman world was great, but it was great because it was grounded, and that's why I realized I didn't like The Dark Knight Rises as much, is because The Dark Knight existed in our world, our dark world that we could live in a slightly darker world, but it was still realistic. I could see a guy putting clown makeup on and being a terrorist. It was still kind of, you have a Batmobile that's like a tank. I could see that. Dark Knight Rises, he's got a flying vehicle with rockets. There's Catwoman. There's like this kind of like, all of a sudden it's not real anymore. And it became too over-the-top comic booky.
Right, but before we go into our re-examination of The Dark Knight Rises...
Right. Man of Steel was not that. It really nailed all the points for me. And what I loved about it was its storytelling. I loved the out-of-time, disjunctive moving back and forth in time and revealing Clark Kent and why he feels like an alien on our planet and what he's missing and how his father, both of his fathers, had a direct impact on him and why he really is an Earthling. Even though he's from another planet, he's a U.S. citizen, he's American, and he represents the hope of what humanity can be, not what Krypton or Kryptonians can be. So that was a really powerful message for me that overall that none of the other films have ever really kind of nailed, except for perhaps the first two, Superman and Superman 2, where they had Marlon Brando and this like, you know, you're an alien, but you're one of them now. It's like this kind of acceptance thing that I think the Russell Crowe was able to deliver in a different way. And his role as Jor-El was great. I loved those sequences with them. And they definitely throw you that like Superman is Jesus and Jor-El is God. And if you don't get that at the end when he's like, you can save them, you can save all of them, and he kind of floats away in a Christ-like position, if you don't see that, you're crazy. They're just saying, look, man, this is the new God. He's got a lot of stuff to deal with. There's a lot of, the planet is messed up, but he's here to help. Right. It's Superman. So,
all right, well, Clark, your general feelings about Man of Steel.
I generally actually agree with pretty much everything you just said, Schnepp. For me, you know, one of the takeaway points for me was I started thinking about Iron Man. I started thinking about when the first Iron Man movie came out, and we've talked about this on the show before. It was a bit of a risk. You know, Iron Man's not necessarily a character that you know straight out. He's not Batman. He's not Superman. You know, and Iron Man's an alcoholic. And Iron Man is a womanizer, and Iron Man's a playboy, and Iron Man's a smartass. And Iron Man's awesome. That movie's so great, right? So Marvel launches into their deal, and then we get Captain America. Captain America is out of a different time. Captain America is it could have been seen as this as maybe this movie could be, it won't connect with audiences, just like you were just saying, Schnepp, because we live in this darker time and the audiences are a bit more sophisticated and those kinds of things. And yet Marvel let Captain America be Captain America because they are foils. The Avengers are foils for one another. Thor gets to be Thor, who is a totally different character than Iron Man, etc., etc. My thing with Man of Steel is that what I saw last night wasn't Superman to me. I felt like it was, I agree with what you said, it was a bit too, it was too dark for me. That's not the Superman that's not the character that I know, and I don't understand why we have to turn Superman into Batman. That being said, I am not saying that Superman Returns, by comparison, got it right. I don't want a neutered Superman. I don't want Superman who's just lifting things like we talked about yesterday. I want Superman to throw a punch. I want Superman to fight bad guys when bad guys are there. But I think as a result of this really watered down movie in 2006, we got this totally other end of the spectrum Superman now. And to me, I was just like, man, if you could maybe combine the two, maybe you'd get more of the character that I know and love. Now, and I wanted to say one more thing about the Nolan universe and the darkness and that whole deal. The scene in Dark Knight where the Joker is in the hospital, the whole scene, from when he's talking to Harvey Dent to when he walks out in the nurse's uniform and hits the trigger and it doesn't work and he shrugs it off and then the explosion happens. I was like a kid on Christmas morning. I was so happy. I was like, this is awesome. And it's so fun. And I did not have fun during Man of Steel.
Wow, you're so insane.
I don't think I'm insane. I mean, and here's the thing, and I know, don't freak out, movie talkers. This is my deal. This is my opinion. I want to say this, though. By the way, the Superman flying in Man of Steel was so cool. Just beautiful. I thought it was gorgeous. I thought he was badass. I thought that was awesome. I loved Zod's armor and Fiora's armor. I loved those crazy masks that they had. Like, that was awesome. But to me, I don't understand why we have to... and that was my concern with, we've talked about this on the show. I was skeptical, which I got in a lot of trouble for saying, of a Zack Snyder Superman movie because I thought we were going to get a Superman movie that was your traditional Superman movie, but Zack Snyder directing it. So it was going to be like kind of shoving a square peg into a round hole. And that's actually not what we got. I think Warner Brothers, for their vision of how they wanted to take this character forward, hired the perfect director. It doesn't matter that I'm not particularly a fan of Zack Snyder's storytelling ability, because his action sequences are bomb. Like, nobody can shoot an action sequence like that guy, and I really mean that. But Superman to me has such heart. There's a real heartfelt component to that character, and I didn't get that as much as I didn't get that at all actually from Man of Steel, and that's not a criticism of Henry Cavill either. I just think that the story that Warner Brothers decided to tell, and I really put this on Warner Brothers, and the direction for the studio wants to take this character is not the Superman that I know. So that's how I felt about it.
All right, well, so we'll get into specifics here in a second. I'm going to give my general feelings on this. This is the best movie of the year so far.
I wanted to ask
early.
you, I saw your tweet. Do you think that this is the best movie of the year or your favorite movie of the year?
Yeah, that is a weird distinction. Because, if it's your favorite, doesn't that definitively... If you think something else is the best, that's a great discussion to have. It's a very fair question. I'm going to say it's my favorite movie of the year. So let's put it there for now, which is saying a lot because everybody knows how much I liked Star Trek Into Darkness and a lot of other films that have come out this year. This is easily, to me, my favorite film of the year. A lot of the year still to come. Now, let me start, like Schnepp did, with the things that I did not like about the film. And there are a few. One is... there's this little comment near the end of the film where this general is standing with this girl captain of his, and the general, this hard-nosed general, is talking to Superman, and then Superman leaves, and this girl captain is grinning. He's like, "What are you smiling at?" She goes, "He's just so hot." Like, really? Did you have to put that line in there? Dear heavens, get that out of there. Okay. The other thing that I'm a little concerned about, this is about the movie. Well, it is about the movie itself, but moving forward. I watched this movie, and I'm like, by the end of it, at the end of Iron Man, I can totally see how that fits into an Avengers world. Mm-hmm. At the end of Thor, I can totally see how he fits. Even though he's very different, I can totally see how this fits into Avengers. At the end of Man of Steel, I'm like, I don't see how this fits into anything else. I don't see how you put a Wonder Woman in this guy's world. I don't see how you put a Green Lantern into this guy's world. I don't see how you put a Batman into this guy's world. Now, maybe WB, obviously, they oddly enough, Warner Brothers doesn't trust me with everything they're doing. So I don't know what they have planned, so maybe they've got a plan. I'm just saying at the end of it, I didn't see how they fit all that kind of stuff into it. I wasn't thrilled with Amy Adams' Lois Lane.
I wasn't either, John.
And that's partially, by the end of the movie, I'm like, I don't think she was bad, but by the end of the movie, I was like, I didn't think she was the greatest fit, and I wasn't really thrilled with how they dealt with her and how they used her. Not distractingly so, but definitely to me that was the weak link in the film. I still don't like the whole "you are not alone" sequence. Really? Zod is just going to send this. He's going to hire some After Effects guys and put together scribbly screams that have the words "you are not alone" and then not have video resolution to his face.
That goes with what I was saying earlier, the heavy-handed kind of approach to certain sequences. That's one of them. But
right.
Yeah.
But one of my biggest problems, it comes near the end too. I didn't like that they made him the intrepid Daily Planet news reporter Clark Kent. I didn't. By the end of the movie, I'm like, no. This whole news reporter thing, this isn't going to work in this movie world. Oh look, I put on glasses. You don't know who I am, despite the fact that 10 minutes ago, Perry White, you were standing face to face with me in the middle of the apocalypse, but now you don't know who I am because I've got the glasses. That doesn't fit. That's nice hoy joy, but okay, that's the stuff I didn't like about the film. I loved Zod. And one of the reasons I love Zod were the exact reasons you were saying you weren't so happy with him. See, the Superman 2 stuff, and I was talking to another friend of mine today, the reality about the original Superman films is they don't hold up. You can't deny the magic that they were when you first watched them in their era. You can't watch them today, though, and say with a straight face that they hold up. They don't.
They're still fun, though.
I think Superman 2 holds
I
up.
had such magic, it was so magical the first time I saw it, So they're still fun for me to watch, absolutely. I could do without the saran wrap off his ass and whatever, but the thing about that Zod was, as cool as he was, and who doesn't love hearing Neil before Zod? I mean, obviously. But he was such a one-dimensional character. It was, I'm here for revenge. Okay, that's great. One of the things I loved about Michael Shannon's Zod is, he is a more complex Zod. Like a real character, there's more than one thing going on. And I've always said I love villains in films that the most terrifying villains to me are the ones who think they're the good guys.
Yeah.
The ones who are convinced they're doing the right thing are the ones who are the most terrifying. And with Zod, pardon me, there's several layers to that to him because in the beginning of the film when we see him trying to overthrow the council, he was right. The council was warned by Jor-El and by Zod, if you do this, you're dooming our race. And they did it. And he came to overthrow them and try them for treason. And actually, when you think about it, he was right. He was trying to save his race. He was trying to do all that kind of stuff. So it wasn't just I just got a hate on for Jor-El's son, so I'm going to go find him. There was that hate on. But underneath that was this driving fear. And when you have a villain that is convinced that he's doing the right thing, he will stop at nothing to do it and then get lost in his own madness.
One thing, let me just add to that, just because that's a great point. And I love that aspect of the Zod characterization in this movie, but I felt some of the way that it was played out lost its weight. Like when they capture Superman and he's inside his mind and they're on Smallville and he's like sinking into those skulls. Like in the trailer, I'm like, wow, I can't wait to see that scene. But when I saw it, it had zero weight to me. It didn't carry any I'm in explain-o-vision mode. I'm Zod. Here's the things again that we explained earlier. That's all I'm saying is story points to me were just hammered in such a cram-fest way as opposed to subtly. How good storytelling is sometimes told in a better way by either visually showing it, since it's a movie. I don't need to have it told to me in explain-o-vision, especially inside somebody's mind. Didn't have the weight.
That's where I differ. See, that scene to me, the reason I love that scene so much is because I never felt like the purpose of that scene was to explain to me, the audience member, what's going on. For me as an audience member, the function I saw in that scene is understanding how Kal-El how this is all being revealed to Kal-El, and then understanding his reaction to understanding what's going on. And everything in that dream world was all metaphorical and imagery, obviously. And so when you see him sinking in the skulls and you understand, okay, Kal-El's exposure to understanding what Zod's motives are
going to terraform and murder
this
everyone.
Horrifying vision. And so you have to, especially when you get to the end fight, that you understand this is Kal-El's perception now of Zod.
Right.
And so that's why I'm sitting there and I'm watching that scene and I'm like, holy crap, this is awesome. Because now we are understanding the motive. One of the hardest things in script writing and whatever is making sure the audience understands the motivations of the hero. Not just understand what's happening.
Right.
And to me, that was a scene that now I understand Kal-El's point of view and how he's perceiving Zod and how this is changing. Because if you just tell Kal-El, I just want to save our race, okay, but you put it into this metaphor of sinking into an ocean of human skulls and death, and because my way of bringing about the salvation of our race is to eliminate and kill everything you know and love, and the horror that embodies.
I agree with you, but I just think the way it was portrayed just didn't have that. Like,
right.
What you just said was better than what I saw.
Okay, well,
like,
I see, but that's what I saw. That's why I loved it so much. And then I think there was one of the tweets I put out this morning was, I think this is David Goyer's best work ever. That you can tell right away in the film that he does not take a traditional linear narrative storytelling point of view from it. And at first, it's a little jarring. But then when you realize after about 15 minutes, he's telling this from a chronicler point of view. He's like the guy sitting at the campfire. David Gore is the guy sitting at the campfire telling you what happened, as opposed to the emotionally unfolding the linear narrative, which was what we're more used to. And once they got to Earth and everything's going, I start to understand this is the way you have to tell this story. And I love the approach that he took with it. And then even these little things, like I started to feel like every scene had a purpose. Like a lot of scene that a lot of people will forget about. Okay, Clark saves the bus. Okay, standard Superman lore. I get it. But you don't understand the real impact and the importance of that until later on, that Pete character, when he's getting bullied, or when Clark's getting bullied again, and Pete steps up, reaches out his hand, pulls him up, it's like that other side of what Jonathan Kent's been telling, that if humanity really does get to know you, they will accept you. There is humanity there, which is why later on when Clark is talking about, can I trust humanity, I think that whole scene with Pete is very pivotal to him understanding, yes, I can put faith in humanity. You know, not despite my father's fears, but you know, as an end game to what my father's fears. But now I'm ready. You know, and I love that so much. And let me just race through a couple of things here. That whole scene about can I trust humanity, I love that. It's flipping the coin on the traditional Superman question of can humanity trust him. It's asking can he ask them. And you know, I'm going to skip a couple of things here and just go to this point. I never like to, when there's a movie that I like that some critics don't like, what our natural human tendency to do, and I hate it when we do this, and I hate it when I do it, is we ascribe reason to that person who disagrees with us, even though they never said that's the reason. It's like, oh, you only didn't like this because you're stupid, or you only didn't like this because you only like action movies. I hate it when we do that. So I try to resist that urge. But I actually went in last night before passing out and read a number of the reviews of the critics who didn't like this film. And what they said in their own words was basically this. They didn't like Superman, and I'm summarizing this here. They didn't like Man of Steel because the movie wasn't what they had already pre-written in their heads what this movie should be. Because it's not the, yuck, I'm Clark Kent kind of nonsense. And we often forget Clark Kent is not who Man of Steel is. Kal-El is who Superman is. And the veneer of the intrepid reporter at the Daily Planet is just a facade. If we're going to make Superman today, see, I think this is the most fateful, true Superman you can make. If you have this God man come to Earth, growing up completely screwed up because of what an outsider he is, and you recognize what an outsider he is, how to balance the idea of power with fear, that the stuff that his dad is projecting, and how beautiful was that scene with Jonathan Kent sacrificing his own life so that his son can stay protected in his secret, which is just an extension of that scene that we see in the trailer about Jonathan Kent saying, you know, should I just let them die? Maybe. That he's no hypocrite because he actually follows that through. This is what Superman would be. See, I don't see it the way you guys do in that they took it and made it dark. No, if this was the God man come to Earth, growing up as a human when clearly not human, and thrown into really dark circumstances, Superman's not dark. It's that he's thrown into these perilous, dark circumstances and how he dealt with it. And I just want to say one more thing before we get into details here. You and I talked about this last night. A lot of people are saying, I'm reading online who have seen the movie, Superman wouldn't kill. You know, he wouldn't kill Zod. And, you know, where is the concern for all these buildings? He's destroying a city, blah, blah. Okay, number one, it was Zod doing that. He was trying to stop it. He was doing everything he could to stop it. And when he kills Zod, you know, Steph, you pointed out to me last night, Kal-El's put in this, impossible situation. He either kills Zod or allows Zod to kill that innocent family. It's one or the other. Yep. So he has to do it. He kills Zod, but they still stay true to who he is, because he doesn't just kill him and stand up and go, "You shouldn't have done that, Zod." No, Kal-El was devastated that he had to kill Zod, and he screams, because he did something with his own hand, and I love that they stayed consistent with that. So for me, the storytelling is brilliant. It captured all the good things about Superman Returns by examining the God-Man, but they also filled in all the deficits of Superman Returns by throwing in the great action. And Zod was a great villain, multiple layers, very complicated character. The best action I've ever seen. I won't put it on level of the Avengers either. I won't. But I put this on par with The Dark Knight. I think it's much better than Dark Knight Rises. This is better, other than the Avengers. I think this is a better film than any film Marvel has done. I'm going to watch this film 10 times in theaters, without exaggeration. 10 times I'm going to go see this thing. So let's talk about some specifics. And Clark, let's start with you. Let's talk about some of the external characters here that we hear. Let's talk about Pa and Ma Kent. So what do you think about those characters in this film?
I did not like them. Here's my thing. So, and I hope you guys. I don't think movie talkers are gonna like this, but I'm gonna say it anyway. For me, I grew up watching Superman, all incarnations of Superman.
Right.
From my name is Clark, but it wasn't named for Superman. But it wasn't an accident either. I'm sure my dad loves Superman, so I grew up watching the Christopher Reeve movies, the Lois and Clark TV show, the even Smallville. I love this character, and I grew up watching this character, and and I still remember Truth, Justice, and the American Way, and all of that stuff. Last night, when when Kal-El snaps Zod's neck, I felt, and no pun intended, sucker punched. And it's not because Kal-El killed Zod. Zod needed to die. He was a bad guy. But, how could you take a kid to watch this movie? You can't. I would not take a kid to watch this Superman movie. Does that mean it's a bad thing? No. Is it a Superman movie for grown-ups? Sure, that's fine. But to me, the way that choice was handled, that movie was so violent, and the snapping of the neck really kind of irked me. Now this does go back to Ma and Pa Kent. Pa Kent telling his life lesson to Clark was, you have to hide who you are. You can't be who you are, because they're not going to accept you. And I will put my life on the line, and I will die for your secret. And I think that is a really poor message. I didn't, and not to say that message doesn't exist in the Superman universe, but for some reason, in this particular incarnation, that message was just so upfront. It was so, they're never going to accept you. You have to hide. You can't be yourself. And I just think that's a really craptastic message. So I didn't like that Pa Kent character. And as far as Ma Kent goes, I didn't care for her either. I actually, John, really am on the opposite side of the spectrum on this script than your take. However, I loved the chronicle storytelling, non-linear timeline. I thought that was awesome. So smart, really fresh, really cool. But in terms of the actual content in the script, I thought this script was very weak. In terms of the dialogue and who these characters were, I really thought some of it was comical. And I didn't like it. And
we are on opposite sides of that.
It's okay. I mean, listen, I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of people that are listening to me and saying, she's crazy, she doesn't know what she's talking about. But I really felt strongly that and especially with Ma and Pa Kent. Now, Jor-El, awesome. I loved Russell Crowe. I loved most of what he had to say. He did say the same thing a lot, which I didn't understand why we needed him to tell us everything twice. But that being said, I mean, I thought Jor-El was great, and I thought Russell Crowe was back. When I was watching Russell Crowe, I was like, wow, he's back, Maximus. You know what I mean? I thought that was really cool. But for me, Ma and Pa Kent did not work.
Well, see, that message of See, I understood the message of, and we have to understand. I don't like ascribing that if a movie character does something, we have to always be aware of the message it sends. We're telling the story of something that happened, right? And like this is a unique thing because not being who you are. Remember, Jonathan Kent's message to Cal or to his son Clark wasn't you can never reveal your secret. It was you can't do this until you're ready. You got to find out why you're here. You have to find out, and when you're ready,
you're going to change the world.
You're going to change the world.
Yeah, I think they did. The script, I think, is really well written, and they do hammer in points, but they're hammered in for specific reasons. Because ultimately, I think Pa Kent exists in this script to be proven wrong. Even though he's saying when you reveal this, you're going to change the world. He doesn't want his son to change the world. He wants his son
to be a farmer,
to be his son, to be a farmer, and they, excuse me. They hammer that home, especially with that the pre-tornado sequence in the car.
Yeah.
And I think Jor-El is almost more human in his caring for his son on this new planet, knowing that his son on this new planet is God, that he's going to have to take care of all these people. Whether or not he's foreseeing that Zod is going to show up or anything like that. I think ultimately that's the message: is like, don't hide, be who you are. And be proud of it. Don't be afraid of it. So I think the Pa Kent is kind of the guy who's like holding him back, and then ultimately kind of sacrifices himself in a horrible way, which is horrible for imagine you're watching your father die when you could save him, but respecting your dad enough to let that happen. It's horrible. It's horrible. Yeah. But I thought it was impactful. I just wanted to trace back a little bit. I too was like, when they showed little baby Kal-El and his, flying over the farm, and then they just cut to the ocean liner. I was so happy.
Yeah.
Number one, I was so happy that I don't have to sit through 30 minutes of some boring origin story that I know, and it's great to see origin stories, but the way they did this was so fun and unique and exciting, and it gave all these new elements to Clark Kent, like the journey of a person who's lost. Because they could see through skin and bone and tissue, and like showing the horror of him as a child having to deal with these kinds of bizarre superpowers. They're insane when you really think about, wow, how do you hold it together? And the Ma Kent showing him how he holds it together. Go to that small place. Now you're walking. It's very caring. And I thought the parents in this, they're not a big part of the movie. In the parts that they're given, really are impactful and to show you how this God is molded as a kid and how he would care to be a human being and not a god. He's actually cares about every single human being more than to me, that's what Superman is in our culture. Is like a lot of people don't even like the Superman character. They'll just admit, I've never liked Superman anyway, so I'm gonna come into this movie hating on it. I've already got a pre-built hate because I don't like this like blue boy sky god or whatever. But the thing about that I've always loved about Superman is he's a direct reflection of our society. He's everything that he's everything that we as humans strive to be and what we could be. Obviously, we're not going to be flying around with laser eyes,
right?
But it's all the best things that we can try to be in the best human that we can be, and that's what Superman represents, and that's what they nailed in this movie. Henry Cavill played a great Superman. He was almost like still a teenager, even though he was Superman. He was kid-like, and you saw it in his face. And I know that's part of the script. Is like he's still a young god. He's got all this responsibility, and he doesn't know how to deal with this stuff, And now he's just found out he's a Kryptonian, and now So there was a lot of weight and heaviness. I don't think it's a dark movie. I just. Like when I was saying like the Nolan part of the darkness is brought in, it's like I'm not saying to have like comic relief like hey, Otisburg or whatever. I need to buy some land or something. It's like I like the tone that they have. It's just I'm losing my train of thought. I'm sorry. I'm going in so many different directions. But here's another thing I wanted to mention. Lois Lane. You had mentioned you thought Lois Lane was miscast. I think she was an amalgam character of Lana Lang and Lois Lane.
That's true.
And a lot of people didn't like Amy Adams as Lois Lane because for a number of reasons, not just that she's not a brunette, but she has this kind of that Amy Adams quality that either you like or you don't. I thought she worked as Lois Lane. It wasn't the true Lois Lane that I've known from all the past incarnations of Superman. I felt their love interest was a little forced.
Agreed.
I didn't need.
I always find that in comic book movies. Actually,
I really didn't need to see them kiss, and I also agree with you that they didn't need to bring in the Clark Kent glasses thing. I thought it was so great that it was like, yeah, here he is. He's on a boat. And he's working as a chef. He's like a traveling journeyman as he's trying to figure out who he is. Then he becomes Superman. He doesn't need to be Clark Kent. The only reason he needs to be Clark Kent in this world now, in the Man of Steel, is to stay grounded and connected to the only person that is in his life that makes him more human than God, and that's Lois Lane. So that's why he goes to work at the Daily Planet, is so that he can be with her. So that's what I got out of it. I didn't see, like, they do the tropes of the glasses, and he's like, what's up? And she's like, I love the line, welcome to the planet.
Welcome to the planet.
It's so great. I think the script is filled with gems like that it's really well done. Once again, my only beef with it is they overcomplicate things, and certain scenes that should have had a weight and a gravity to them felt cold to me, a little too sterile, and I wanted to feel that feeling that you had, but I felt I was just a little bit removed, and then just too many special effects made the final confrontation to me like, look, if I made a Superman cut, like if I just slapped that thing into an edit machine, I would cut out when he has to go to the other side of the planet and fight that tentacled thing. I would just cut it out, show him like boom, bam, explode right onto Zod.
See, the reason I like that so much is because you kind of broke it down earlier. There are several conflicts happening. There is the conflict of the evil plan, take the Earth, terraform it, kill all humanity.
Which was great, that Poundo thing.
Oh,
that
it
was
looked amazing.
So horrifying.
And then you had the personal level stuff, the hate on for the L family.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so there are three key battles in here. One is our introduction to Kryptonian on Kryptonian violence, which is Feora and the bigger dude fighting Superman in the street. First of all, it's amazing. It's the first time we look like, oh yeah, this is what a fight between super-powered beings
so fun
would look. They're throwing trains at each other. They're going through 15 walls. I mean, it was awesome. Okay, so that was like an introductory fight. The fight against the quote-unquote fight against the, what do they call it, the World Engine, the big machine. That was Superman fighting the plan. That was the representation of the plan, the evil plan, that to terraform the world, blah, blah, blah. That was him stopping the plan. And then you move on from that, and it escalates to now it's personal.
Right.
Now it's him versus Zod one-on-one. Like you said, I think the best single fight I've ever seen in a comic book film.
Yeah.
I loved when they were fighting, when Zod finally gets the suit off. That was I didn't understand why he had to stay in the suit for so long. You know, his big war suit?
Right.
And he rips it off and he's like, I'm bred to be a warrior. That's what I do. Rah, rah. I was like, yes, this is amazing. And then they fight each other in the air. And that was so cool. And then it was over so fast.
Let me bring up one thing that you mentioned about the neck snapping, because we're talking about the movie and, that's what happens.
Yeah.
That's a direct homage or using one of the best hardly seen comic books because it's out of print due to legal reasons, Miracle Man number 15, where Miracle Man is like a Shazam Superman character. Alan Moore wrote it. John Toddleman drew it. Takes place like there's an evil character who's like Kid Miracle Man, but there's all this other kind of like backstory, but he's destroying the world. He's destroyed London. He's put people's heads on spikes. It's really horrific. And he's unstoppable. And Miracle Man is faced with the only way to stop him is to kill him. And he snaps his neck when he Shazams back to the child form and he kills the kid. And it was one of the darkest comics. I read it when I was in college. One of the darkest comics I've ever read in my life. But it shook me because it was like that. He had no choice.
Of course.
So in a certain sense, when John Byrne did a very similar thing when he rebooted Superman in the late 80s. He had the Phantom Zone criminals, General Zod, and these two other characters. They're like, they got out of prison, out of the Phantom Zone. They're on Earth. They're like, we're going to destroy Earth, and we're going to make you watch. There's nothing you can do about it. And he's like, oh, sorry, son. Bam! Kryptonite. He's got like lead on, an anti-kryptonite suit. He kills all three of them in the comics. And there was an uproar in the comics community. Superman can't kill. That's the one thing he can't do. And it's like, why not?
Yeah.
Where's that written that he can't kill to kill one person to save like
everybody.
Billions
the world.
And billions? Sorry, that's something that's just going to have to happen. And that they do that choice. That's a hard choice in the very first Man of Steel reboot. I thought it was a
and
really proud and brave thing to do.
I just want to be clear that I don't have a problem with Superman killing Zod. I just want to be very clear about that. And I honestly don't even care about the fact that he snaps his neck. It was just the way it was done was very, like, it just upset me. Which I guess should be the reaction.
I think that should be a reaction. That's what they're going for.
And I understand that, and Superman reacts, and I get that. I don't want to make it seem like I'm like, why can't everybody just hold hands? And he's saying, go home, Zod. You're not welcome here. Like, that's not what I'm saying, and I don't want Superman to just be lifting things. I want to be very clear about that.
Zod, have you ever tried ice cream?
Yeah, maybe we should just
Earth,
get some Haagen-Dazs.
Ice cream on waffle cones.
I don't know if you could hear them, but there was, in this packed theater we were in last night, there's this group of very vocal, not talking through the film, but you could tell they were having a good time. Group of girls behind us, and when Kal-El snaps Zod's neck, you just hear the one girl yell, "That's right, that's what you get."
Yeah.
Oh
like,
no!
Yeah.
There was a big there was a huge uproar in our screening last night, and yeah, I just want to be very clear that I'm not saying why do you have to kill Zod, because he should have.
Right. So I mean, as we start to wrap this up here, our final topic will be how can we see this leading into the future of the DC universe and thing. But as we wrap it up, I think this we got the full spectrum here. I absolutely adore this film. I think this is the best comic book movie since Avengers, other than the Avengers. I think this is the best comic book movie ever made, other than the Avengers. Schnepp, you really like the film, but you're not at my level of enthusiasm.
No, I'm very excited to see it again. I thought, once again, I didn't even mention the Krypton scenes.
Krypton stuff
loved
was cool.
the take on Krypton. It was so exciting to finally see a little bit more of the world of Krypton instead of like, here's a guy in a bright aluminum outfit, and now the world's exploding.
Sculptures.
Yeah,
and it felt like a world. It
did.
didn't feel like a set.
I mean, I could have. Honestly, that made me think about like the older versions of some of the Superman. Like J.J. Abrams was like originally going to have this giant war on Krypton, and Krypton didn't explode, and people were really angry about that. It's like, but you were still able to get a little flavor of this alien world and like some of the the weird rules that they had to go through, and like what a badass Jor-El was. It was so cool to see Jor-El in action and actually doing stuff. So I mean, that was something that was really fun. And once again, that's like a bigger chunk of the movie than I even expected, and I was not disappointed. It was, wow, this is great, and so relieved to like when they got to Earth to just jump right in to Clark Kent now. And I just think the storytelling was really fun. I mean, the movie is a big blast, a big journey. It's 2.5 hours of insane action and drama. And so I'm really happy with it. It's like, it's to me the best Superman film I've seen as an adult. Like I'll always have, Superman, flying into the Coca-Cola scene, exploding, General Zod kneel before Zod, all those like God Zod moments that we were talking about. But this is like a new Superman, and I think it's a great first step. Now it's like up to Warner Brothers to like, look, you build worlds, dudes, world building. Get it together. That's
okay. So as we end the DC thing here, let's do a quick summary here. Clark, out of 10, and you have the right to change your mind later, but out of 10, what do you give Man of Steel?
As a movie, I give Man of Steel a 6.
You really? I wouldn't have thought you would give it that
real
high.
Fast, because I know we're wrapping up, and I know we got to do this. I just want to. I know what I'm saying is kind of confusing. The movie itself, The movie itself, yeah, sure, it wasn't quite for me. Like I enjoyed Star Trek more than I enjoyed Man of Steel. Okay, I didn't think the movie was terrible as a film. I didn't think the film was bad at all. I don't agree with the direction that I feel this is going. And that's my big gripe. But as a film, sure. So I give it a 6 out of 10 for me.
Schnepp, out of 10.
Give it an 8.
Give it an 8?
Yeah, like an 8.5. That's what, like closer to 9, but not a 9. And you know what, we were talking about a little bit earlier about like how can the rest of the DC world fit into this, and those little Easter eggs where you saw the LexCorp thing and then the Wayne satellite. You're like, all right, it is going to fit into this world.
They acknowledge they live in this world.
They live in this world. I think it can be done quite easily. I just think, no more like side weird like Green Lantern. What world is that in with giant big head screamy people? It's like, here we've established Man of Steel. The tone is good too. It is like it definitely is like in that Nolan-y kind of universe. But look, I mean, the Nolan Batman universe, once again, I'll just reiterate, it worked for me because it was in the real world. It was real. They didn't have Superman. So to me, I think now that they've done Man of Steel, they have to get a little, not lighter, like bring in some clowns or something, but you know what I'm saying? It's like, look, if you're going to bring in the Flash, you're going to bring in Wonder Woman, Justice League, the DC universe inherently is different than the Marvel universe, just straight up. When we were kids, it was always like, is it Marvel or DC, or either one or the other? I like both for different reasons, but definitely Marvel is like the soap opera where it's like Spider-Man has to have a job, and you actually care about these characters as human beings as well as superheroes. And DC has always had this kind of like, yeah, all their alter egos are so out there, you know? Like Bruce Wayne, a billionaire.
Like, playboy.
Yeah, so I mean, you know, that they're going to have to work on that, and I think they're doing a great job with Man of Steel as the establishing point. I can't wait to see how they and let's try to make Justice League before 2020, yo. What's up with that? It's only 2013. I don't want to wait 7 years, you know?
Okay, so Clark is giving this a 6 out of 10.
Correct.
Schnepp, you're giving it an 8 out of 10.
8.5.
8.5. And the correct answer is 9. I give this film a 9. Favorite movie of the year so far. I think brilliantly written. I think great action. I think a great marriage of the two. I think this is a true... I don't think you can get more true to the spirit of Superman in today's context than they did with this movie. I don't like the bumbling, I'm Clark Kent. I mean, I've said that for a long time. I don't. That doesn't fit for me into who Superman is. But whatever. I can see the need for it. Wrapping it up with how do they transition this? I'm having a very difficult time. I said that earlier. That's one of my perceived weaknesses of the movie is I don't see how Batman fits into this. I don't see how Green Arrow, I don't see how Green Lantern, I don't see how Martian Manhunter, I don't see how any of it because it felt so real. The movie felt so real to me, which I think gave the overtones of the darkness to it, that I just don't see. Well, first of all, it's the old joke, but you bring Batman to this. What is Batman to Superman? It's like, bing.
What is Captain America to Thor?
Right.
Exactly.
So we can have gods and men, just like Tony Stark and
That's the
Iron
beauty
Man. He's
of it,
like, yo, there's a guy with a god with a giant hammer. There's aliens. That's why he's tripping in Iron Man 3. I think they have to, DC, and if Nolan, whoever's going to run this, Gore, they have to take that step that Marvel's given them. I almost swore. Here is a little hint for you. Keep the humanity. That's why Iron Man's such a giant hit, is because he's a man with armor. Right. Captain America, he's a man with some super, like he's drank some serum, got blasted with beta rays, whatever. I can't remember. He's in a tube. He's all thin. Now he's muscular and he can do stuff. So it's like, but there's Hawkeye. He's a dude. He's just a guy. He didn't drink serum or anything. He's a guy who's got arrows and he's like a super badass. You know, he's in the same world as Thor, you know, who is a god from Asgard.
Yeah.
So, and they make that work and they make it fun because you can't all of these things are not real. So you can't ever have any of this stuff in the real world, but you have to have these rules set up. And I think, you know, Dark Knight Rises broke a bunch of those rules that were set up in the first two for me. That's why it's less of a film for me. Man of Steel just set up all these rules perfectly, I think.
Right.
And it's all set. So now it's up to them to start dropping these other characters into this new world that they just set up. And Batman, I think, will fit in fine, honestly, as
because Superman has that ability to make those, you know, Superman has that, I don't know, I'm going to say human. I know that's probably not the right word, but
I think it's exactly the right word.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Superman has that humanity to him, which is why he's not going to beep for Batman.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So, and they kept that in the film. Cavill's portrayal was very human, and, you know, of course, we talked about the moment after he kills Zod, how devastated he was. So if they keep that going, Batman and Superman, I think, can absolutely, in this universe, can absolutely coexist going forward in this.
And I do think it was interesting that this now, because this is the first, if we want to use Marvel terminology, this is the first Phase 1 movie for DC. That means, like Iron Man was the first Phase 1 movie for Marvel, everything else that came for the Marvel Universe kind of fit into that mold that Iron Man set up. This is now the world that the DC Universe is going to have to fit in. This is the world that they just set up, and I think it's a very good world. I'm just really curious to see how they're going to make that all work together.
Yeah.
Folks, we've gone, I'm going to guess at least an hour. I don't know that for sure, but it is time for us to wrap this up. Thank you so much for joining us. Listen, head on over to www.amctheaters.com for your theater and showtime information for Man of Steel. You can get your tickets there. Make sure you go see it and then let us know what you think about the film. You lean more towards Clark, more towards Schnepp, more towards what I'm saying. Let us know. No right or wrong answers as far as that goes. So I want to thank everybody for joining us again. Thank you so much for being here, Clark.
Thank you, John.
Especially after we were just here like 4 hours ago for the movie.
It's good to see you guys again. We caught up. It was good.
Schnepp, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, I'm actually in here. I'm
He's
not
here.
being Skyped in.
He's a real person. I can touch
actually
him.
really here, guys.
And actually, Clark, where can everybody find you on Twitter?
At Clark Wolf. Clark with an E, Wolf with an E.
Schnepp?
At John Schnepp Twitter, follow me. I'll tell you how much I love Man of Steel and talk about like the Kryptonian babies that were overplayed a little bit. Go see Man of Steel. It's completely
Go see Man
an
of Steel
amazing
and love
fun
it.
film.
And love it.
And you can find me on Twitter at John Campy, or follow me on Facebook at John Campy. Either way, that's where you'll find me. Thanks a lot so much for joining us, folks. And until next time, my name is John Campia. We'll see you Monday, back to regular format with movie news. And until then, bye-bye.
Hey guys, if you like this video, hit the thumbs up button and make sure you subscribe to our AMC Movie News YouTube channel. It's free and will keep you up to date on all the latest movie news, as well as our daily AMC Movie Talk show. Also, be sure to follow us on Facebook and Twitter to find out about our special promotions, contests, and prize giveaways.